Hey everyone, Suri here, and welcome back to another week of Astra Season offense matches. Seeing Legendary Shez get a bonus week was a real treat after my recent success using her for a hit-and-run approach, and I was happy to have an excuse to use her again. She's a player-face powerhouse. Her multi-hit weapon and access to universal effective damage gives her some of the highest firepower in the game, and giving her a physical null follow-up shuts down one of the few ways a tank can survive her by cutting their passive damage reduction in half. Ruptured Sky is a really consistent special for her thanks to her weapon's flashing blade effect, and her ability to neutralize penalties means that she doesn't need to worry about bright shines or other debuffs to her stats. Both is a nice way to round out her kit, giving her extra mobility along with a way to provide her own attack and speed bonuses. Having Shez as the bonus also means that the entire team can be set up to support her. Yuri's an invaluable addition to hit-and-run approaches. His ability to defuse any trap while moving Shez or another teammate into a better position is still unique, and his cavalry movement range and Kanto let him pull off some wild positioning plays. Azura's here as the team's second dancer. While there are other options, and I was seriously considering Triandra, the extra movement she can donate to her teammates can be a really valuable way to navigate into or out of the front lines. There were a couple of moments where I wished I'd given her flier guidance instead of joint drive attack for the week, though. The Mythics offer a lot of movement options for the team. Thor and Naga are both using Trace, letting them use their assists or break structures before maneuvering to a better position. Odd Tempest is a great seal here, giving Thor even more mobility on the first, and usually hardest, turn. Plumeria's Firestorm Dance has multiple uses. The Kanto really helps her to navigate in and out of tight situations, and giving Shez Desperation-enabled quads is just a silly bit of synergy. Guidance 4 is a powerful movement tool as well, especially paired with Yuri's foul play. Now that we've gone over the team, let's get to the first match. This was a fun match to run into early in the week, featuring a Chell as their first savior of choice. She's not somebody I see too often on defenses, but I do think this one's really impressive. Her weapon gives her a scaling triangle advantage against any opponent with lower visible stats than hers, while the Distant Defense 4 and Guard 4, along with Armored Beacon, do a lot to let her survive any ranged hit-and-run approaches. They also have a sneaky little dance and rally trap going on the right side here with the Dorothea, who will move in to dance the Arvel, get rallied by Katria as long as she's in range of somebody on the enemy team, which gives both Arvel and Hinoka a much wider range of attack than you might be prepared to handle. Thankfully, we're not trying to tank this. We start by moving Thor in to open up the panic matter and give ourselves a bit more room to work with. Leaving Thor where she is also gives Azura a flyer formation point to move in and dance Shez after she takes out Chell.
I see.
While this is currently a dangerous spot for Azura to stay in, we're not planning to let it stay that way.
I'll put you in your place.
The first dance lets Shez take out Arvel, before Plumeria moves in, dances her again, and Kanto's out of range to the right.
Leave it to me.
And by finishing off Hinoka here, we remove all of their front line of ranged threats from the table, which lowers their threat range by quite a bit and keeps us out of their danger zone for this turn, to let the safety fence shut them down. From here, it's fairly straightforward. All I need to do is move Yuri in and foul play Shez so that she can get to work on Mirabilis. Mirabilis isn't a hard target for her, and I was actually planning to pin Dorothea in place in her little corner, but I ended up dancing in the wrong order here.
Leave it to me.
Shez can move in and knock out Katria without any problems,
Can't beat me.
but Plumeria is not the dancer who has flyer formation on this team.
I'll do it.
So I end up just having to let Shez tank both Freyr and Dorothea here, which thankfully, with the bonus week stats, she's more than solid enough to do.
I'm unstoppable.
Also lets her take out Dorothea in the enemy phase, which means all we have to do is pick up the 2 Aether pots and close out the match.
Yes.
Thor's in range of 1, and we can smite Plumeria over to claim the other, before letting Shez get a little bit of revenge and finish Freyr off to close out the match. This was a neat map to figure out. It's another Freyr-backed Catria ball, but this one has a Citrine to try and keep those Catria bonuses active on the entire team, along with an Infantry Pulse Gatekeeper in the back to shut down any Wings of Mercy approaches. The pre-charged Blazing Thunder is a great way to complement the Wind Tribe Claude, whose instant lethalities can be very hard for any tank to handle. Chrom is a great third threat to round things out. The pre-charged Piercing Moonbow with adaptive damage is a lot to handle, especially with the pile of free stats that he gets thanks to all of the bonuses his allies are giving him. This is also a tricky map to get into on the first turn thanks to the placement of the structures, the traps, and Chrom's Canto control. We do manage to get in here, but we're only going to be able to pick off 1 unit before using the rest of our actions to retreat. After we take out Femortis, Plumeria can dance Shez, and then we'll use Plumeria's guidance to get Shez to safety, while also opening up a spot for Thor to Canto into after she pulls Plumeria out of the danger zone. From here, things are still a bit tricky. These traps mean that we aren't going to be able to pick off 2 units this turn either, which means that we're going to have to spend most of our actions just staying as far away as we can.
What do we do?
While playing Azura forwards means that Shez can use her own formation buff to get in on top of Catria, and from there, it's all about retreating. Leaving this blue throne intact is also a pretty important thing to do, since if I break it here, there's a chance that Chrom ends up using Change Fate to move Freyr to the left, which would give him access to this tile that Plumeria is standing on. From here, things start getting a little bit more straightforward. We can break the throne now, which lets Shez warp in to pick off Chrom, and finally take that Canto control off the table.
Can't beat me.
Dancing her here means that we can take out Freyr next.
What do we do?
Our goal in this turn is just to stay out of Claude's attack range and take out the front 3 units.
I'll put you in your place.
And since Plumeria can Canto herself back out of Claude's range, she's the better second dancer to use here. Shez can finish off Citrine, which lets Yuri foul play her to safety, and keep us out of range for this turn. At this point, things are a bit more straightforward. We just need to collect these Aether pots before we close things out.
This'll be fun.
Smiting Thor forwards gives her access to the one on the right, while foul playing Shez forward gives her access to both of the remaining enemies on their team. Dancing Yuri lets him pick up the pot in the corner, and now we can just have Shez clean up the match.
I'll put you in your place. Close your eyes. What do we do?
This map was one of the few this week that didn't feature a Freyr on the team. They do have a Cordelia to enable some form of triangle attacks for their squad, and the two safe armors in Edelgard and Formortis do a good job of discouraging any hit and run or gale force approaches. The freshly refined Erica in the backline is fun to see too, and is not somebody you want getting on top of your tanks, while the Dio Asker is always a good way to round out the team. What made this map tricky though wasn't necessarily the team, but just more about the layout of their structures and traps, which once again are going to stop me from getting 2 knockouts in this first turn.
I'm with you.
Letting Yuri open things up and having him foul play Shez forwards lets us test this heavy trap and make sure it's not going to get in our way later.
I seek a foe.
The rest of the team is just working on opening things up
Leave it to me.
and getting Plumeria in range to dance Shez after she takes out Formortis. Once he's down, we can just dance her, Canto over, and reposition her to safety. From here we can start really going to work on the rest of their team. Smiting Yuri forwards lets him foul play Plumeria on top of this trap, which defuses the Hex trap and lets Shez warp forward to take out Cordelia. Even if that hadn't been the correct Hex trap, Shez does have enough health to defuse Hex traps on her own, and dancing her lets her move over and take out Edelgard next.
I'm unstoppable.
Plumeria's new position means that Azura can dance Shez one more time before Thor repositions Plumeria to safety, and Shez does the same for Azura. Since Aether is the only one left on their team without an assist, it's very easy to predict the movement and make sure that we stay out of range no matter where she ends up moving. And, having stayed safe there, it's easy enough to start picking apart the rest of their team. Shez can start by knocking Aether out, and then we can dance her forward to do the same thing to Asker.
I'm unstoppable.
One more dance from Plumeria lets her move in and take out the last real threat on their team.
What do we do?
With Eric out of the way, there's not really much that Mirabilis is going to be able to do to Shez. Even with her remix, it's not really something she can do much about when Shez has no follow-up and triangle advantage. Not to mention the bonus weak stats and extra defense from both Thor and Naga. And from there it's just about collecting our 2 Aether pots and closing out the match.
Leave it to me. Your luck has run out.
This match was a fantastic way to close out the week, even if it was really intimidating to run into. It's a modern-day flyer ball featuring 5 different soaring guidances, which not only makes their team hilariously mobile, but also stacks their attack and speed to near unmanageable levels. That combines nicely with the speed preempts, making it dangerous to attack Hinoka or Lysithea at range. Together with the traps, terrain, and structures, it's very hard to get on top of this team on the first turn, let alone get back out of their threat ranges. Hinoka in particular puts a lot of pressure on the incoming team. Breath gives herself and Lakeyarn much easier access to Deadeye, while Charge means that Lakeyarn and Lysithea threaten your starting position on the first turn. Being the 7th unit also sets up a really scary dance trap. Laroom will always move in to dance her from the mountain tile, giving their entire front line access to a 3rd tile of your starting position. From there, Lakeyarn can rally Lysithea from the Hex trap tile and get danced by Mirabilis. That forward position gives all 3 of them access to nearly the entire map. While Elincia usually isn't getting involved in the first turn stampede, she makes the map much harder to handle on the following turns. Laroom, dancer or not, is another legitimate threat, especially if she, Hinoka, and Lakeyarn start setting things on fire with Flared Sparrow. while Mirabilis' Remix and Sabotage are great ways to support her team from across the map. And that's all without mentioning the maxed out bonus week Counter or Freyr in the back, who stops false start or isolation from shutting down any part of the team's first turn. It's a very impressive setup, and it took me a while and some mid-match improvising to figure out how to navigate it with Shez. I do think Gatekeeper would make it significantly easier to handle, but even with him mitigating the guidances and charge, it's not hard for this team to find a knockout. Starting this is tricky, but we do have a way in thanks to foul play and guidance. Moving Shez forward defuses the bolt trap and puts her in position to take out Lysithea, which will shrink the danger zone by just enough for us to prepare for the next turn. Unfortunately, I missed an important part of Lysithea's weapon while mathing this out. She cancels Shez's speed bonus, putting us 6 points behind the speed tie that I planned for. We still could have tied this if I'd set her up with a Dragon Slaying buff, and placed someone in range to enable her Oath, but that wasn't possible from here. Thankfully, Shez can take the hit and finish Lysithea off, and we can settle back into the original plan. Plumeria can dance Shez and get herself out of the danger zone, while the rest of the team moves over to clear out the structures and give ourselves some room to work with on the next turn.
By your will.
Unfortunately, I did forget one important detail of the original plan, having Shez defuse the Hex Trap, which she can't do safely after taking a hit from Lysithea, so we had to come up with a backup plan from here. Taking out Mirabilis is the only safe move we can make, but it also lets us plan out the enemy phase fairly well. Freyr will move first, since he's a melee without an assist, and will get danced by Laroon. The flyers can warp past Laroon, but by hugging the corners of the map we can stay just out of their attack range. Thankfully we still have enough mobility to make that work. Thor can pull Shez into range of Plumeria's dance, and get evacuated by Yuri and Azura. Plumeria can move herself to safety again, and Shez can jump past her to claim the last safe area on the battlefield. Thankfully, the backup plan works. Freyr moves forward, the flyers warp in, but nobody quite reaches us. So from here, it's just about cleaning things up and staying out of range of Valencia. It's not too hard for Shez to start picking them off, at least once we shuffle Plumeria forward, to give her space to attack Freyr.
I'll put you in your place.
We do need to be careful with positioning though. It's very possible for Laroon to move forward into Hinoka's current tile, which would let Valencia warp past her and pick off one of our units. It is possible for us to guarantee our safety. Laroon is chasing Plumeria here, so as long as we threaten Hinoka's tile with more of our units, we can make sure that Laroon moves to the tile below the catapult instead.
I'll put you in your place.
Which will strand Valencia on the other side of the field. We can do that just by smiting Azura over to the right and having Naga Kanto down. And then we can breathe a sigh of relief and bring this match to a close. Shez won't have any problems picking them off from here. So we can just move in and claim both Aether Pots for a nice clean finish before we close out the week.
Where to, friend?
Close your eyes. What do we do? Your luck has run out.
This week started off relatively quietly, but the last match was an absolute treat to clear. It was a lot of fun to let Shez tackle another week, though using her did make me appreciate just how effective Gulveg's Flared Sparrow and extra action can be when navigating some of the trickier setups. Speaking of Gulveg, she'll be back next week for some bonus week nonsense, though she might end up sharing the spotlight with Corin for a match or two. I do have a Discord channel if you'd like to hang out and chat. There's a link in the description, and I've also got a Patreon link there if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.